All right, we are live with Empowering Radio, brought to you by myempoweredworld.com. My name is Evan Dorian, and I'm your host tonight, joined by co-host Mark Dorian. We've got an awesome guest speaker tonight, Pete Ochs. He's an entrepreneur and a business owner, and this is you can see his article series called In Search of a High Impact Life, and this is the first interview. And soon we'll have his first article of his series on myempoweredworld.com. So be sure to check that out probably the next day or so. Pete, how are you doing tonight?
Evan, I'm doing great. Great to be with you all.
And we're excited to have you on the show tonight. Before we get started, I just want to give all of our listeners an overview once again. My Empowered World provides transformational tools for living so the world has a place for everyone. Be sure to check us out on our website at myempoweredworld.com. We've got a lot of great uplifting content on there. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We've got a lot of great photos and inspiration on Instagram. And be sure to also follow us on our daily empowering emails. You can find that at the upper right-hand side of myempoweredworld.com. If anyone has any questions tonight, please feel free to post them on our Facebook wall, and we'll try to answer them before the end of the show tonight. So super excited to have you on the show tonight, Pete. You've always been an inspiration and someone I've always looked up to since I've been a kid. You live such an amazing life, and I'm super excited to have you on our show and share your story with our fans and followers tonight. And I think our co-host Mark has some questions for you. So, Mark, how about you start it off tonight?
Thanks, Evan. You're right, Evan.
Yeah.
This is really a special, very special night interviewing absolutely one of our family, somebody that we respect and have a high regard for. So let's just jump into our segment one. Pete, glad to have you, and let's just talk a little bit about your background and where you're from and just how you got started, and try to give us a little bit of knowledge of who you are.
Great to be happy to do that. And once again, Mark, it's great to be on the show. You know, I'm probably a kind of a typical Midwestern guy. I was born and raised in Kansas. I was raised with the typical Midwestern values of faith, family, hard work, etc. And went to college, got out of college, and got into the business world, and spent 8 years in the commercial banking business and just had an entrepreneurial itch. My dad was a farmer, and probably from that it led me into this entrepreneurial lifestyle. So at the age of 30, I started a little investment banking business. And for the next 10 years, life was hard, but life was really good. And at the age of 40, I woke up one day and realized that I had made more money than I thought I'd ever make. I had a great family, had a great wife, great kids, great friends. Things were going well. And while I had been and had become successful, I was still just not satisfied. And I realized that I was probably not living a very significant life. So that led me to start a 20-year quest for trying to figure out what this whole thing about a high-impact life might be. What does it look like to live a life that is, every day you wake up with a God-exalting, soul-satisfying purpose in your life that just makes life worth living.
You know, Pete, that's fantastic. What were some of the things that, let's talk about the unsatisfying things. Can you give me just a little bit of your story in detail about how those differences surfaced and how that conflict basically pushed you to really try to identify what a high-impact life is all about?
Sure. I think all of us probably have something in our lives that controls us, that becomes our God, as it were. And mine was money. And I had been raised to work hard. I'd been raised to the fact that, if you were successful, that was a good thing. So I worked hard to do that. And it was just unsatisfying. I really struggled with that, and I just kept thinking, well, at the end of this deal, I'll feel good. And I didn't feel good at the end of the deal, so I went to the next deal, and thank goodness I had two older men. And I'll just say this, I think a very important thing in life is mentors. And if we can use those older, wiser people to speak truth into our life, I think that's a very important thing. And these two guys took me under their wing, and they really showed me. I think the aha moment for me became when I understood the truth that I was really a steward and not an owner, that God really owned it all, and I was just kind of the manager of what he gave me. And once that happened at the age of 40, which was 21 years ago, my life began, all of a sudden, significance started to creep into my life.
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about, what does a high-impact life look like? Can you describe some of the tools? Let's get into the tools you used. I've got truth, faith, and character. Let's talk a little bit about truth.
Yes. I love to use the analogy of the head, the heart, and the hands. And truth is really to know. It's a head thing. And I believe faith is to believe. It's a heart thing. And I believe character is to do. It's a hands thing. So you have this, every time I'm doing something in life, I say, what is the truth? Because I think it all starts with the foundational truth. And truth can be, truth covers all disciplines. It can cover financial disciplines. It can be physical disciplines, relational, spiritual disciplines. And I think really for me, the quest for truth is really critical to living a high-impact life. And then once we understand what the truth is, the next thing is, do we really believe it? Do we really have faith in it? And I think so many people do not accomplish what they could in life because many of us know the truth. I believe many people know the truth. I believe some people believe it, but very few people do it. And it's that faith component. Faith is the fuel that turns knowing into doing. And so I think the faith component is critical, but it also has to start with the truth. What is the truth? And if you know what the truth is and you really believe it, it will wind up and you will live that out in your life. And all of a sudden things become very powerful.
That's fantastic. Let's take faith a little bit further and then drop into character. Any other aspects of faith? I know you mentioned it's a heart thing. Let's talk about, you said truth is mind, it's in the head, and your faith is the heart. Can you elaborate just any stories to really drive that home?
Sure. When I came to this realization that I was a steward and not a manager, and I became an entrepreneur, and so I was driven to succeed. But as I studied the truth, Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. And I think what we all want is freedom, but we have to, down in our hearts, believe certain things. For instance, I had a business, and this is a quick story I'll tell you, but it just highlights the importance of faith for me. I had a business that was very successful, and at the same time, my wife and I had been involved with an organization that dealt with youth, and they needed a substantial amount of money. And my wife came to me one weekend and said, Pete, I think you need to sell that business. We need to give that money away and really help these young people. And I did not want to do that because I really loved this business. It made lots of money. It was an easy business to run. And long story short, I did what my wife suggested. We sold the business. We gave a considerable portion of the proceeds away. 2 weeks after we had signed the contract to sell the business, the U.S. government, which was one of our primary customers, changed the rules and regulations, and the company that bought us ultimately a year later went bankrupt. And I just believe that because of faith, I think the faith component allows us to make decisions that sometimes may not seem to be the most logical, but I think they are the right decision. So I think the faith component is just huge. And once again, Jesus said, without faith you can't please Him. And so faith, I think, is a very important part of living a high-impact life.
Pete, that's really great. Let's take a moment here for a station break. Evan, I'll give it back to you, and then we'll come back and pick up our second segment.
You're listening to Empowering Radio for My Empowered World. Visit us at myempoweredworld.com. Become a subscriber and get daily inspirational messages delivered to your inbox.
We're back with Empowering Radio, brought to you by myempoweredworld.com. We are here with our guest speaker tonight, Pete Ochs, an entrepreneur and business owner. Be sure to check out his article series, In Search of a High-Impact Life. And this is our first interview and first article series. And also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and sign up for our daily empowerment emails. And let's get back to where we're at. And I think, Mark, you had some great questions there. This has been an awesome interview. I've really enjoyed it. So if you want to continue on, I think you've got some more questions you'd like to ask Pete.
Yes, you know what? Thanks, Evan. I wanted to pick up one thing on our first segment that I had that I wanted to complete. We started with there's three, kind of a triad. There's truth, faith, and Pete, we come up with character. Our last one in that triad is character. Can you really describe that, first of all, and then maybe give us an example of how that works?
Sure. I think character is probably that accumulation of all those attributes that most of us are looking for in our family, in our friends, in our business associates, things like character, integrity, hard work, those kinds of things. So I really would define that as, we're looking for people of character to develop relationships with. And unless you have some core values that begins with truth, I love to do business with people that don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, look out after my own interests, those kinds of things. So I think it starts with those truths, and then if you believe those truths, all of a sudden you'll start living those out, and you become a person of character, which we all know. It's great to do business. It's great to be friends with people of character.
And I feel like you attract that more too when you're kind of living that. You attract those people in your life more as well.
Exactly. Yeah, birds of a feather flock together, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Pete, let's take into our second segment. We were looking at let's take the high-impact life and look at it from a different perspective. Let's give a few more details. Let's talk about creation of a triple bottom line. Can you give an example and give us a little bit more detail on what that means?
Sure. As I started this journey, I really did it from the perspective as a business owner, and I continued to ask myself, if I could run and operate and own a high-impact business, what would that look like? And over a several-year period, it took us a while to figure this out, but if I just look at what we need as people, there are probably three basic necessities we all need. One is food, shelter, and clothing, and helps to have a little walking around cash. I call that economic capital. The second thing I think we all need is relationships, okay? And I would call that social capital. To define social capital a little bit further, I would really say that's a group of like-minded people coming around to a common cause. And we have several institutions in our society today that promote social capital. One is a family, another is church, another is the marketplace, and another would be, let's say, your community, the political climate or the political unit that you live in. There's other groups and organizations, the Rotary Club, the Sierra Club. It's a group of people that come together to promote a common cause. And so I think social capital and relationships are absolutely critical. You need economic capital, but social capital is critical. The third is what we call spiritual capital. And I would define spiritual capital as the moral code by which one lives. And for me, I'm a follower of Jesus. I try to live by his precepts. I use God's Word, the Bible, as my kind of operating manual, as it were. So I use that as my basis for my moral code. Various people will have, everyone has to figure out what that is for them. Judeo-Christianity works well for me and is my basis for my moral code. So with that, I then am given some guidelines as to how I ought to live. That spiritual capital is critical because it gives us the principles by which we then can handle the economic capital we're given, and it gives us principles by which we can deal with the relationships or the social capital that we have.
That's fantastic. We have some examples here that I know of, and I've actually experienced this with you personally. You have some very unique manufacturing program going on in the state of Kansas in their prison system. So how does this kind of play out using all these principles, and especially with some of the toughest people in society? You've really been able to have an impact on these people. Can you give me a kind of just a little background on how you got into that and really how all these tools have really helped you and help others in the prison system and really changed a tremendous amount of lives that would have never had the opportunity to have these principles or really have life-changing experiences?
Yes. So on our quest to try to operate what we would call a high-impact organization, once again, our goals would be to create economic, social, and spiritual capital. So 7 or 8 years ago, we purchased a company, and it was located in a town of about 50,000 people, and we were really short on a labor supply. And by a various number of things happening, we wound up employing work release inmates in our business. And ultimately, the warden of the prison came to us and said, "Pete, not only do I have 15 or 20 guys that are coming to your business on a work release program and working, I've got 1,800 other inmates that are incarcerated and can't leave the prison. Would you think about moving your business into that prison?" So we did that. That's been a very, very worthwhile program for us.
Let's take another station break, Evan, and we'll be right back with My Empowered World.
You're listening to Empowering Radio from My Empowered World. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/MyEmpoweredWorld. And remember to share and help us spread our message of empowerment.
All right, we're back with Empowering Radio. We're here with our guest speaker tonight, Pete Ochs. And just to give you guys just a better understanding of who Pete is, we've got a great article that we've already, and video that we have on myempoweredworld.com. It's called Generous Giving and Life Lessons. This is a great, I think it's about an 8-minute video. It kind of tells a story about Pete's business at the prison. It's super inspiring, and it tells Pete in his entrepreneurial, God-given resources to build a sustainable business at this Kansas prison. If you have the chance, please check it out. It's really something to watch. So share it with your friends, and check it out. So, all right, we're back with Pete and Mark. Let's continue.
Okay, this is great. For segment 3, I really wanted to cover something with you, Pete, that I find really fascinating, and you call it your values map and your living principles for a high-impact life. Can you just kind of lay out, kind of mind map this for us, and we'll kind of explore all the different elements. This map will also be posted in the article on My Empowered World. So, Pete, let's talk just a little bit about your values map.
Sure. Well, the end result of the map is, of course, to create this triple bottom line, these 3 forms of capital: economic, social, and spiritual capital. And so how do we do that? So that's the goal, and we have come up with 4 principles that we believe are critical to any organizations. And this map was originally created for our business environment, but as we've worked through it over the last 10 or 15 years, it's really a map, a values map that can be used for an individual or even a nonprofit organization. We think the principles hold true. So our goals are the 3 forms of capital, and we have 4 values or 4 principles that we espouse. And those 4 principles are this: we want to honor God, we want to serve people, we want to pursue excellence, and we want to be good stewards of whatever resources God has given us. So let's just take a minute and maybe break down each one of those. By honoring God, we really look at that as in any organization you have what we call the 4 Ps. You have principles, you have people, you have processes, and you have property. Anything you do in an organization, in a business, you can probably put in one of those 4 categories. So for us, we derive our principles out of, we operate our business on biblical principles, and consequently, that is derived from the value of what we call honoring God. We honor God by living according to those principles, and I enumerated those a little bit earlier, a few of them. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, look out for the other guy, love your neighbor yourself. So we try to operate our business on those principles. The second value, to serve people, we just think is absolutely critical. If you look at most successful businesses, they are the businesses that truly serve their customer. They serve their vendors, they serve their employees. And we have found that to be to work very well for us. There are times when we've made a mistake on a product and it hurts to take back the product and build a new product, but it has always paid off for us unbelievably. So we truly believe in serving people. Thirdly is the pursuit of excellence, and this has to do with processes. We think that excellence honors God and inspires man. And without excellence, you can just not be all that you should be. So excellence is very critical to us. And lastly is the stewardship of resources, whether it's human resources, whether it's tangible resources. We think that we need to be the best stewards of those resources that we can and not abuse them. That includes treating the environment properly. That includes treating our people properly, giving them the best benefits. We have a 100% guarantee on any product that we manufacture to our customer. If they don't like it, we take it back, we'll fix it, or we'll give them a new product. So we have operated our business on those 4 principles. And in addition to those 4 principles, we have 3 virtues that maybe in a future show we can start delving into some of these future virtues. But things, for instance, like courage and vision and perspective and discipline, some of those kinds of virtues are built into those 4 principles. And for each one of our 4 principles, we have 3 virtues that we espouse. So that winds up being our values map. And we found it to be very effective. We've probably been operating with that for maybe 10 years now. And literally, our senior management or middle management and most of our employees, particularly the older ones, understand exactly how we operate the business based on those 4 principles.
That's great. I wanted to cover with you real quick. We're almost at the end of our show, but can you give us one example of how this values map has changed people's lives? Maybe one example or just in general, but how would you kind of recap just how this has had an effect on people around you?
Sure. Let me go back to the prison example. We went into the prison 7 years ago because we did not have a good labor supply, and we went in there because it was a very consistent, low-cost labor supply. After 2 or 3 months of being in the prison and seeing these inmates and actually understanding that they're human beings, they're people that need help and courage and hope, we started implementing things that would help them out. Whether it's life lessons inside the prison that help them be better fathers. We've started classes so they can learn more about whatever topic they're wanting to learn about. Those kinds of things, and the results of that have been absolutely phenomenal. I just spoke with my son about 30 minutes ago, and it's about 9:30 in the evening here in Kansas, and he had just gotten out of the prison. He had met with 9 different inmates that we have in a special program, a special educational program. It's actually a seminary that was started inside of the prison, and he was on cloud 9 based on the response from these inmates. So it's a very powerful thing that's going on there.
Pete, that's fantastic. We're going to wrap up now, and I appreciate the time you spent with us, Pete. We look forward to future interviews with you. This is Pete Ochs, In Search of a High-Impact Life, My Empowered World Radio. Evan, I'm going to turn it back to you to close it out, and this has been a fantastic half hour.
We'll also include Pete's values map into the In Search for a High Impact Life. So some of our listeners, if you want to find that, you can find it there. So people can incorporate that into their life as well. Thank you for listening to Empowering Radio tonight, and we're going to sign off. Thank you. Have a great night.
You're listening to Empowering Radio from My Empowered World. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/myempoweredworld. And remember to share and help us spread our message of empowerment.